Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So it's another day, it's another beautiful Thursday, and if you guys know what we do around here, you know that Thursdays are our science experiment days. So stick around if you want to see what we'll get up to today. But before we jump into our science experiment, let's talk about our riddle. So as always, I'll ask you a riddle at the beginning of the video, and we'll check in right before I say my goodbyes to see if you figured it out. So, our riddle today is, what's something you can keep after giving it away? I'm excited to see what you guys can think of. But for now, let's get into our science experiment. Today, our science experiment is gonna be making some raisins dance. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Emma, how is making raisins dance science? Well, let me tell you about it. I gotcha. What we'll be doing is we're gonna have a experiment group with some soda and a control group with some water. Now, why do we need to do this? Because we wanna see how soda reacts with its environment, with the raisins that we'll be dropping in there. Now, why exactly are we testing that? Because soda is carbonated. Those little bubbles, they do stuff. And I want to see what stuff happens, don't you? Now in the water, I don't know what'll happen. Will they float? Will they sink? I don't know. So let's make a hypothesis. If you guys remember, a hypothesis is an educated guess on what we think is going to happen. So I want you to take a second and write down your hypothesis. And I'll tell you mine right now. My hypothesis is the raisins will dance and rise and fall in the soda, and I think they'll probably float in the water. I don't know how many times they'll go up and down in the soda, but I'm gonna guess about 5 to 7 times. I'm excited to see exactly what happens. Have you written down what you think will happen? Your prediction or hypothesis? All right, then let's move on to doing our experiment. All right, so we're ready to start our experiment, but before I jump in, let's go over it one more time. Our soda, which is our experimental group because we are testing the carbonation in the soda, and then we have our water, which is the controlled group because there's not really anything we're testing. We did make a hypothesis though, seeing if the raisins would float in the water. I said I thought they would. Now, let's see if it's true. They got caught up when I poured it in, but that was just the pressure moving them around. Let's see what happens now when I use the ginger ale or the soda. Ooh. You can see they're dancing. They're being lifted up by the carbonation. So you can see that it's lighter than the other liquid around it. I'm going to pour more in and see if we can get more to dance. Just that one raisin is really busted a move. Oh, he's got a friend joining him on the dance floor. I'm gonna say I did expect more to pop up. I hope that you guys enjoyed our science experiment. I know I did. Although I do have to be honest in saying I did expect more raisins to get up on that dance floor. If you guys remember, I had hypothesized that either 5 or 7 would go and float up. But at most we had 3, which is kind of off from 5. So, I always think it's so interesting to see what I've expected, what I've hypothesized is going to happen, and then what science really has in store for us. That's the fun of the experiment. Today, our positive action is again gonna focus on self-improvement. Now, we've really been talking about self-improvement in a very situational way, right? We've been talking about situations where there's choices we need to make to improve ourselves. like holding ourselves more accountable and being more respectful to ourselves and those around us. Those are just a few of the things that we've covered. Now, today's positive action is going to focus on self-improvement, but in a more self-centered way. Instead of a situation, it's focusing on what's going on inside your brain. And I know we've talked before about being aware of our thoughts, our actions, and our feelings, but this is going to really hyper-focus on that because it is so important to be aware of how we're thinking about ourselves. If we don't allow ourselves to think that we can improve, sadly, we won't improve. It's all about your mindset. When your mindset is suffering, you're probably not going to be doing the best you can. So it's important to be aware of what's going on in here because it helps us figure out what's going on out here. It's all connected. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and make sure you're encouraging yourself. Be your biggest fan. I know sometimes it's easier said than done to really pick yourself up and say, I'm going to be the best, I am the best, especially when you're not in a great mind place, right? When the things in here aren't necessarily friendly. But it's so important that you are kind to yourself, you give yourself the chance to do something new, to improve upon yourself, and that you have courage. Because trust me, you can do anything you set your mind to. So, now that we've talked about our positive action or positive tip, let's move right on to Super Fudge. If you guys remember, we left off in the middle of chapter 3. Mom and Dad had some big news. I'm talking like big news, like moving to a different state. And Peter and Fudge, no. They were not happy. We were in the middle of the conversation where Mom and Dad dropped the news, so let's jump right back in and see what happens. We're going to Princeton instead, Dad told me. Instead, Fudge babbled. Be quiet, I yelled at him. And just as loud I said, I hate Princeton. You've never even been there, Mom said. Oh, yes, I have. We went to visit some of your dumb friends, and they served us this disgusting dinner. Shrimp, mushrooms, and spinach, all mixed together. And I was so hungry, but they wouldn't give me anything else to eat, not even an extra piece of bread. I remember. Oh, that's right, Mom said. I'd forgotten all about the day at Millie and George's house. You forget everything that's important. Look, Peter, Dad said, we were hoping you'd be pleased about Princeton. We've already rented a house there. In fact, we've rented Millie and George's house. They're going away to Europe for the year. That old dump? It's not a dump. It's a beautiful old place. And we've arranged to sublet our apartment. So you can keep an open mind about all this. Open, 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 Fudge sang. You should have told me before. Just like you should have told me about Tootsie as soon as you knew. You never tell me anything. And here, I said, shoving Tootsie at Dad, why don't you hold your stupid baby yourself? Because I have things to do. I got up and marched across the living room, kicking a couple of Fudge cars as I went by. By the time I got to my room, he was crying. Good, I thought. And then Tootsie started. Better yet. And then Turtle began to bark. Let them suffer! I slammed my bedroom door, and my map wound up on my bed again. I guess I fell asleep in my clothes because next thing I knew, Mom was shaking me and saying, Come on, Peter, get undressed and get under the covers. It's late. Too hot for covers, I mumbled. Okay, but if you want to sleep in your clothes tonight, you can, but at least take off your sneakers. Like them where they are, I said sleepily. Okay, if you want to sleep in your sneakers, I guess just for tonight. Maybe every night. Mom ignored that. Peter, about Princeton, she began. I held up my hand. I just don't want to talk about it. You don't have to talk. Just listen. Too tired to listen. All right, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Anyway, nothing I can do about it. Just like Tootsie. Nothing I could do about it either. But you don't mind her now, do you? I mean, I'm getting used to her. and you'll get used to Princeton too. You'll see." Then she started telling me about where I'd go to school, but I was still half asleep and not really listening until she said something like having your little brother in the same school. Suddenly, I was wide awake. "What did you say?" "About what?" "Just now. About Fudge and school." "Oh, we've had him tested. And even though he's young, we're gonna be able to enroll him in kindergarten. After all, he's had a full year of preschool. And you know he can count by tens and recite the alphabet. And he knows his months and days of the weeks. And colors. He can even spell Maine." Yeah, I said. "We all know the kid's a genius. But you said something else about him going to the same school as me." "That's right. You'll be in the 6th grade and he'll be in kindergarten. Won't it be fun?" "Fun?" That did it. I jumped off the bed, grabbed my Adidas bag. "You think it's so fun to go to a new school? I won't know anybody there, and I definitely don't want to go to school with my little brother." "You don't understand anything, do you?" I opened my dresser drawers and dumped my clothes into the bag. "This time, I'm really leaving." "Peter, honey," Mom said, "you can't run away every time you hear something you don't like." "I don't think it. I know it." "Even so, running away doesn't solve anything. Maybe not for you, but it does for me." I tossed my baseball glove, my favorite jeans, half of my Mad magazines, and a few smaller maps, and a couple of tapes. "Shall I make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to take along?" Mom asked, smiling. "Don't give me any of that little boy stuff," I told her. "I mean it, because I'm leaving." She stopped smiling. "I can understand how you feel, but Daddy and I thought, Daddy and you don't think the same way as me. I'm beginning to see that. And if you cared at all about me, even just a little bit, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have. Peter, we care a lot about you. That's one of the reasons we're moving to Princeton. And we didn't even get to tell you the really big news." "Oh, there's more?" "Well, I can't wait to hear it. Daddy is taking the year off." I stopped packing. "He quit his job at the agency?" "No." "He's been fired?" "No." "Then what?" "He's taking a leave of absence." "Wait, he wants to tell you himself." She went to my door and called, "Lauren! Lauren! Can you come in here?" "I'm changing Tootsie," Dad called back. "Be there in just a minute." All right. That's where we will stop for today. We'll see what Dad's big news is, even though we already kind of know a little bit what it's going to be. I'm sure there will be more developments. Now, before I go, as always, I have a riddle to talk about. So, who remembers our riddle? Have you figured it out? Our riddle today is, what's something that you can give away and still keep? Did you figure it out? It's your word. When you give your word to someone, you're giving it to them, but you keep your word, hopefully, if you're a trustworthy person. With that, I'll let you guys go, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.